Given the function f of x is equal to 7 minus 3x minus 5x squared, simplify the following rational expression: f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So now the first thing we should do is figure out what this f of x plus h is before we can continue combining everything. So note that f of x plus h is the same thing as f of x when x is equal to x plus h. So what we basically do is every time we see an x in our function, we want to replace it with x plus h. So now, doing that, we get f of x plus h is equal to 7 minus 3 times x plus h, since we're replacing, then minus 5 times x plus h squared. So now the first thing I want to do is distribute this negative 3 into the sum, so we get 7 minus 3x minus 3h minus 5 times x plus h squared, which we can do that scrap work on the side, right? So x plus h times x plus h, when we fold that out, that's going to give us x squared plus xh plus xh plus h squared. So what we get finally is x squared plus 2 times xh plus h squared. Alright, then finally, before we're done with this part, I want to distribute this negative 5 into the sum. So let's do that. So we end up getting, so we end up getting 7 minus 3x minus 3h, then minus 5x squared minus 10xh, and then minus 5h squared. Alright, so now we found our f of x plus h, but we're not quite done because we need to figure out this whole monster, right? So we want to evaluate f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. So we start by writing f of x plus h, which we figured out it's this thing. So we have 7 minus 3x minus 3h minus 5x squared minus 10xh minus 5h squared, and then minus f of x. But f of x was given to us at the very beginning, right? F of x is 7 minus 3x minus 5x squared. And one thing to note is that you're subtracting the whole function. So when you subtract, you want to put a parentheses around f of x and then distribute that negative later. Or distribute it whenever you want. And then finally, this is all over h. So now, the next step I want to do is to distribute this negative, as I said, into here, which is basically just going to change the sign of everything. So this is 7 minus 3x minus 3h minus 5x squared minus 10xh minus 5h squared, and then minus 7 plus 3x plus 5x squared, and that's all over h. Don't forget that denominator, even though it's just one value. So now let's see if there's anything we can possibly cancel out. And notice that there's a positive 7 and a negative 7. There's a negative 3x and a positive 3x, and when you combine all these, you're going to give you 0. And there's also a negative and positive 5x squared. So what's left over? I've got a minus 3h minus 10xh, and then minus 5h squared, all over h. And then finally, notice that there is an h in each of the terms in the numerator and the denominator. So we can factor an h out and cancel it. So in the numerator, if you factor an h out, what's left? Negative 3 minus 10x minus 5h all over h times 1. So then when you're canceling, you can take an h out of here, out of the numerator and the denominator, and finally what you're left with is negative 3 minus 10x minus 5h. And since there's nothing else we can do to simplify this, this is our final results.